From the misty Pacific coast to the rugged Cascade Mountains and beyond to the high desert in the east. Whether you chase black-tailed or mule deer, Roosevelts or Rockies, if you fish for bass or salmon, hunt cougars, bears, turkeys, or ducks, we want to talk about the most overlooked section of the outdoorsman community, true Pacific Northwest hunters and fishermen. You have found the podcast for you. Born in the wettest woods of the lower 48, where we only talk about the endless pursuits of the far western world to inspire you in your next adventure.
There will be many tags in our lives that go unfilled, but if your first objective is to learn and grow, you can find success in every season.
And I stand up and like, oh my God,
Your foot fell off.
it's off. Can't find it.
And ask the big questions about what truly motivates our life in the wild.
I believe that God gave us the ability to do this.
You go from plodding along and not really living to living the full, abundant life that He has for you now.
You are listening to the Oregon First Hunting and Fishing Podcast.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're recording here in Dayton, Oregon with Dave Hakola and his taxidermy shop. And I'm your host, Bryant. This is our co-host, Jericho.
Hi, everybody.
I have a few announcements before we get into the rest of the show. Remember to follow us wherever you'd like to stay up to date, especially if you'd like to join us for fishing trips and hunting trips. Facebook users, you can join our Facebook group at Salem First Hunting and Fishing Club. And I wanted to ask everyone, if you like what we're doing here, share the show. If you can get just one person to listen to our show, it'll go a long way in building this community and helping us to know that we should keep doing what we're doing.
That'd be good.
On the same lines, if you want to give us feedback or offer corrections or submit a question to ask our future guests, we have a form for you to submit. If you just click on the link in the episode description, then you can submit anything you want there, any kind of feedback. We'd love to hear from you. And the final announcement, our next event is coming up January 4th. We're going to go duck hunting again. And that was a lot of fun. Jericho, you didn't make that one last year.
No, my wife is the worship leader at our church, so she was leading Christmas choir on Saturdays.
Yep. Well, this is after Christmas now.
Yeah. So hopefully
I'll be able to put it on the calendar. But if you want to join us there, we'd love to meet you. Love to hunt with you. That's going to be a lot of fun. In this episode, we talk about taxidermy, the Oregon mule deer plan, and have a conversation with our guest, Dave Hakola. Dave, thanks for having us.
All right. Thanks for coming in.
I've known Dave pretty much my whole life, as long as I can remember anyways. And so he has been a great mentor in my life. I actually got to intern here in the shop my senior year. And so I got to flesh some hides and power wash some skulls and do all sorts of fun things. And he's actually the one that got me into carp fishing too. So
sweet.
Yeah.
No, we've had some good carp hunts, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say more like carp hunts, right?
Yeah.
With the
carp
bow
fishing, carp hunting, whatever you want to call it. Right?
Yeah, with the bow and nothing's mounted on the wall. You know, we don't have any carp on the wall, but we have some good hunts.
There is a picture on the wall though. There's a picture.
Because you haven't really done any fish stuff, have you?
No. I had a guy working for me at one time who was a state champion fish guy.
Oh, wow.
And there's just a lot of extra work involved compared to what I like to do. Mm-hmm. I like the mammals. Yeah. And so when it came to the fish, it's just too much for me. So I just kind of contracted that out to this other guy.
That's a good move. Do what you like, right?
Yeah. Focus on what you like to do and you'll be better at it. For sure.
Icebreakers.
All right, Dave, are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Fishing or hunting?
Hunting.
Bow or rifle?
Bow.
Fly fishing or conventional?
Conventional.
East side or west side?
Definitely east.
Oh, all right. All right.
Deer or elk?
Deer.
Okay.
Deer? Okay.
Yeah.
So mule deer then, if you combine the east and the deer there, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And the reason why I said east is because one year we were hunting And we had just a rainstorm come through with my brother, and we got out of the blackberry patch, and it's like, this is the last time we're going to hunt west. I mean, it was just miserable on our hands and knees trying to get through where we needed to be. And it's like, no, we need to go east.
Yeah.
So,
That's kind of the west of the west there for you to be crawling in the blackberries in the bottom of the valley. I mean, if you want to find thick brush to hunt in, I'd go there. That'd be the place to look, right?
right. You look, you see, and then what do? You're all tangled up. You know, so.
Man, I've gone through a lot of pairs of rain pants, though, I'll tell you that.
For sure.
Cool. So you guys just got back from some mule deer hunting, at least glassing for some buddies, right?
Yeah.
Trying to help fill some tags. How was that?
Very, very hot and dusty. Yeah, it was untraditionally warm. It was like upper 70s to 80s during the day, and then it was dropping down to the like low 30s and down to 28 the second night we were there. So
man, it's such a big temperature swing.
Yeah.
I always think about how much, like, how wimpy we are, or like when we have the big ice storms or whatever, and all the deer and the elk, they're just living in it. It's just their life, and we're all huddled up inside trying to wait for it to pass, you know?
That's right.
Yeah. They're pretty tough, and that whole area had got burned again. And so where we were at specifically was, I mean, probably, I think it was 2021 it burned up, and it was bad. I mean, there was nothing there. So
Wow.
Yeah, it was really a shame to see, but you know, we did have some green between the black patches, but the deer were still in there.
Sure.
And from what I understand, they come in for the browse. You know, you could get a good burn and then wait a season or so, and you get that green browse coming back up. So
that's what everyone says, right? And so, but did you experience that?
As far as actually seeing a deer, no. So I think that might be a wives' tale. Who knows? But
Yeah.
Well, you guys saw $3 the day before season, right? And
yeah.
Oh, okay. So they're there.
They were there. Just
they had their calendars set. Said hunting season. Oh, time to go and hide.
As soon as all the trucks showed up, they were, and the guys come up there to get their cows about that time too. So there's some cattle trucks and stuff going through. And
well, yeah. Speaking of that too, I was with Rich, a hunting partner, and we were on a stand together, and we hear this, like that, you know. Yeah. But it was a deep growl. And it just keeps getting closer and closer. We couldn't see anything. We just heard it coming closer. All of a sudden, this huge Charolais bull pops through the brush. And it's like, okay, what are we going to do if it charges us? I just have to outrun Rich. That's all I got to do. So,
which wouldn't be too hard to do.
Were there any trees to climb?
Oh, we're getting too old for that.
Yeah.
You know, those ponderosa pine, aren't too many limbs down low to grab.
It'd be like those guys that climb the banana trees, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know, though. If you have the adrenaline rush, you might be able to pull it off.
Yeah, I'd shimmy up that sucker quick,
No, those free-range cattle over there are, I mean...
They can be a little,
they're
they got to be tough, right?
Yeah. Well, the bulls they turn in with the cows, I mean, they're huge.
Yeah, this thing was 2,000 pounds.
Oh, man.
And that's no exaggeration.
I mean, they ripple when they walk, you know, their muscles are just...
that's
pretty
crazy.
Impressive. Yeah. Pretty impressive. No season on them.
Yeah.
You know, but it was pretty impressive to see.
No season on them.
Yeah.
Unless they get wild, right?
Yeah, unless they can't catch them,
like that,
and then the owner tells us, hey, if you see this, just shoot them. But I don't think that'll ever happen. So.
Yeah, I've heard of that happen in other states, but not out here. Yeah, I've kind of had a similar experience. Well, this is my first, not with the bull, but with the mule deer hunting. This is my first rifle season that I've hunted that I'm not a tag holder. So since I started hunting, I've been, rifle deer, rifle blacktail here on the west side has been my thing. And this year, though, I am trying out the archery season to see if the rhythm works better for my family. So I won't be hunting blacktail again until end of November. And so that means I have more time. I've just been taking people hunting. It's been fun. And it has been a good rhythm for my family because, hunted really hard all September and then get a little bit of a break before the November archery seasons for deer come back around. Man, today I went out there and I felt so out of place. The only living creature, it was dead silent. You know what? I saw a salamander.
That's
but
it.
there was nothing out there the whole day, and I think it's because we had that really clear full moon, and it's just still dry out in the woods. But man, we didn't see anything, we didn't hear anything. It was just dead quiet and still the whole day. But you know, we were talking about before we started recording, the weather should be coming back around soon.
Yeah, with this rain coming in, it should get them up and moving, and getting closer to the end of October. Things should be warming up a little bit as far as the deer.
Yeah. Well, we killed a buck on one of these bluebird days last year, except it never got above 40 the whole day, and there was a consistent breeze, so it was really just a bone-chilling breeze, and that kept the deer moving, even though it was dry.
Yeah.
But a day like today, where it's pretty comfortable to lay there all day, that's what the deer are going to want to do, I think. So.
Yeah. No, your timing's going to be good, I think, as far as the number of bucks that come into the shop.
Oh, yeah.
The majority of blacktail, it's towards the last week of the season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
you know what?
And they're
that makes
monsters when they
sense.
come. Yeah, they're big bucks too.
Oh, yeah. Well, you might have a little bit of a bias there, because are most people going to bring in a Forky for a shoulder mount?
That's true. Yeah. Although I did get in a little spike whitetail a number of years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And it came from a hunter who, he's an amazing hunter. And so I had to ask him the question, why this?
Yeah.
And he said that it was the best hunt of his life. It came from Alabama as a swamp buck.
Huh.
Swamp buck.
Yeah.
And he hunted it for a week. And finally, it was a cat and mouse game. Finally, he connected.
Wow.
And so it's about the memory.
Yeah.
In this case especially, just a little spike. But
yeah.
But it was a good hunt for him.
That's cool.
Yeah, more about the time spent in the woods than the size of the rack, right? It's that how it came to be.
Yep, absolutely. Like for me, not filling my elk tag this year, I had so many experiences that I'm satisfied. I mean, it sucks the freezer's empty, but I'm satisfied with the way my season went. It was a pretty amazing season.
Yeah, you had a pretty good season.
Yeah. Last note here on what's going on. Coho, record-breaking run in the Willamette. They've had nearly 50,000 fish over the falls.
Wow.
And that they've never had it in recorded since they started counting them. And the other thing is the Coho aren't naturally in the upper Willamette. They were planted there back in the 50s. Then they stopped the hatchery program when they realized that they weren't actually from that part of the river. And it's been a self-sustaining, technically wild run of fish that's been growing and growing. But anyway, I don't think I told you this yet, Jericho, but I got a new boat.
You already got one?
I got one.
I saw you had posted your old one for sale. But
Well, I got it before I posted the old one, because my idea was if I can buy a new one for $1,000 and sell my old one for $1,000,
then you can break even.
trade. And so that it looks like that's it's going to work out that way.
Okay.
But so now I can fit technically 5 people, but probably would comfortably fish 4.
Wow.
But big difference there, right?
Yeah,
because
for sure.
my little John boat could barely hold, the 2 of us.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But anyway,
Dave had a little even smaller boat that we took carp fishing every once in a while than your
that
John
little
boat.
Oh yeah.
We about tipped it over more than once.
That's the one that we had to pack into that little pond, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, we had a 16-foot for the
right
for the
for
Yamhill
for the
we did a
river.
lot
We
of
had that
fishing on.
16-foot one, but for the pond.
Oh, I was
just
going to
this
say,
little-
were you taking the little boat in the Willie or
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Cool stuff. Fun stuff. Awesome. Well, before we get into the news, I have a quick call to action. Once again, I just want to say that if you have a topic you want us to cover or a specific question you want us to ask our guests, please submit those at the link in the episode description. And we really want your feedback. This is another way for you to reach out to us other than social media. And also, we want to meet you. Come out and hunt and fish with us at our next quarterly event, which in this case is the duck hunt, but we do fishing trips, shooting events. We just really want to engage the local community of hunters and fishermen. So that's your call to action. But now, here's our look at the news. So the ODF&W Mule Deer Management Plan was published in June this year. You guys heard anything about that yet?
Have not.
Nope.
Okay. Well, they've done a bunch of, studies, and they've been working on it for a little while now, but the ODF&W, for every species of game animal that they manage, they make these wildlife management plans. And what they do is they explain how many animals are currently on the landscape, how many need to be on the landscape, as in how much landscape can sustain, and how they plan to get there. That's kind of an overview of a wildlife management plan. I just wrote down some bullet point highlights that I thought were interesting. You guys, if you think they're interesting too, you can let me know. The last revision was 2003. Now that's over 20 years ago, 21 years ago. And I mean, how much changes have you guys seen in mule deer in that time?
Yeah, the numbers have gone down as far as harvesting, I think. And the cougar numbers have gone up, and the predators. So that all plays into it, I'm sure. Is that in the report also about predators and all that?
Yep.
Yeah, especially where we used to hunt. I'd hunted it for 9 years and only killed 3 deer the whole 9 years that we were there. And every year we'd find cougar tracks, and then there was more and more wolves moving into that unit that the locals were seeing. As soon as the snow hit, they would find their tracks and they would be chasing them off away from their cattle. And mule deer has always been, they have it rough.
All that to say is, I mean, it seems like they're overdue for an update on how they plan to maintain these things. And we'll see some bullet points I'll bring up that predators are a huge part of the limiting factor for them. And the department has made some promises in this plan of how they want to confront that. Yeah, it's 276 pages long, so it's a long read. That's why I gave you the bullet points. But anyway, in 2022, which is the most recent data that they were able to use to put this together, they estimated 162,000 animals. So just over 162,000 animals, which the all-time high population since they started counting them in 1981 was over 300,000. So since then, we are almost halfway down from what their record high numbers were. But if you look, they have all these charts and graphs in the plan. And if you look, you can see since 2000, it's been a real steady decline. But even in the last 7 years, 2015 to 2022, it's just been a really steep decline in population numbers. And obviously everyone's real concerned about that. I thought it was interesting that the first Oregon mule deer season, so before it was free game, anyone could go shoot one, then they implemented a season in 1901. That's 123 years that we've had seasons for hunting mule deer. And in 1948, the state created the first mule deer tag. So I thought that was interesting. So for, the first while, there was a season, but you didn't need a tag. They needed a tag from 1948 onward, which from then on required a license and a tag to hunt, and then limited the number of deer that could be killed per person. Instead, obviously, that naturally would make it more of a per family unit. Right. Yeah. The number of mule deer hunters has also declined a lot. In 2021, there were over 40,000 mule deer hunters, which that still kind of sounds like a big number, but it's really not, especially if you compare it to the number of blacktail hunters. But in 1970, there was over 180,000 mule deer hunters. That's crazy, isn't it? That's a lot of people out there. And then harvest is also way down, with 14,000 mule deer killed in 2021, which is only 18% of the amount killed in 1970.
That's insane.
We're just seeing a lot of really steady declines, and some of the main points they brought up, and one that they spend a lot of time on in the plan, is actually fawn survival, and more specifically predation on those fawns. There was a 36% fawn survival rate in the first 6 months. So of 100 fawns born, only 36 of them would live, and most of those were killed by predators. And then you look at the 6 to 12 month range, the 60% of those 36, so it's like compounding, survived that, and most were killed by predators. And then the next biggest one after that was cars. So cars sort of become a fact in that age group. And then by adulthood, if a deer made it past 12 months, and this is looking at does only, they didn't include the data for bucks, that's a 70% survival rate. And half of those, so that means 30% of them died, right?
Right.
Half of that 30% of does were killed by predators, and then a good number of them by cars. And then there was a decent amount killed by natural causes, which would be old age and disease. But one thing that was shocking to me was that hunters and poachers kill about the same amount of them. So that means that for every hunter out there killing a deer is poached.
That's nuts.
Isn't that crazy? But they're both the smallest piece of the pie for mule deer death. Yeah. And if we want to really think about what that means, we lose 30% of our adult does every year. So we need to gain 30% more population growth in does to recruit more deer. But what did we just learn is that it's been a steep decline since 2015. And even before that. But I don't know. I thought that was real interesting, especially the point on predators, because it seems like hunters have been saying predators are the problem for a long time. And this kind of feels like a little bit of justification that the data is showing that, yeah, we have a major predator problem in Oregon.
Well, it's just, 6 years after they disavowed the hound hunting for cougars and bears?
Yeah.
In 2000 that it started, they took the first test or whatever?
Yeah, 2000. So since the year 2000, it's been on a steady decline.
Right.
And you're right. I didn't even make that correlation. So, that's like almost directly in line with the cougar.
Yeah. So 6 years after
hounds.
they discontinued that, then the population started dropping.
Yeah. And as you were saying earlier too, that the population started really declining at a steadier pace or at a steeper pace.
Yeah.
I bet you that would just coincide with the amount of predators that are being populated also.
Yeah.
So the population of predators going up and the prey is going down, the deer going down, elk going down.
Well, and like you had mentioned, east side, it's a lot easier for those predators to run and chase down these deer. Whereas our side, they have to be a little more sneaky and get up close in the brush. Whereas that side, they have a little more running room. And so they're probably able to take out a lot more deer, especially now that we have wolves. They could outrun a deer any day of the week.
Well, especially on ice. I mean, years ago, I remember a story of Harney Lake being frozen over, and deer would winter down in that lower land, and they'd end up on that lake, and the coyotes would just pick them off because the coyotes have got better traction on the ice than a hoofed deer. So, so I mean, it was just a terrible loss of deer there.
Ultimately, the plan boiled down to all these different objectives, which I'm not going to list off because there's a whole bunch of them. And the back of the plan is where those are. On the predator management, they did say that they want to try to incentivize more hunters to kill cougars and bears. The problem is their hands are tied with hounds. Like they can't, that has to be a vote by the people of Oregon in order to make that ever a possibility again. But then they are going to kill a bunch of yotes in the prime mule deer breeding areas. Oh. Or not just breeding areas, fawning areas where the fawns are born. They're going to target killing a bunch of coyotes. So the department itself is going to do that, which I thought at least it's something they can do. I mean, and then if we do get more hunters who are interested in spending all their gas and time to try to kill bears, or I feel like the effort to reward on cougars is disproportionate. You're lucky if you see one kind of a deal for most hunters.
Well, with the population going up, I've been hearing a lot more guys killing them just because there is so many now. And I mean, they're killing them in their backyard most of the time lately, just because they've been coming down and getting pushed out of their regular territory by other cougars.
Yeah, no, I'm getting more. I mean, 1 or 2 a year now. That's without hounds. That's just somebody's got a tag in their pocket.
Yeah.
And the latest one was a guy had killed a deer the day before and went back to kind of check the gut pile, and there's a cougar on it.
Oh.
And that's how he got his cougar. So we're going to do a mount for him. It's going to be a life-size. Cougar's going to be walking down a rock ledge, and at the base of that rock ledge is going to be the deer skull.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's going to be really a fun mount to do.
Yeah. That is cool, man. I can't imagine how much space that would take up.
I think he's got the room.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, if you want to learn more about some of their studies and objectives, then you can go to the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife website, and they have all the wildlife management plans posted there, and the newest one is right there, the Mule Deer one, 2024. I thought that was kind of interesting stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that is. That's great.
Let's get into our conversation with Dave Hakola.
Yeah, so What do you want to know?
I want to know everything.
It's only taken me 44 years to figure out what I figured out so far in taxidermy.
44 years?
That's when I started. Yeah,
Oh, man.
44 years ago.
Nice.
So, I started, I was working for Clackamas Fire, or I should back up, Milwaukee Fire.
Oh.
At the time, 1980. And every firefighter had a second job. I tried a couple other second jobs that were backbreaking.
Oh,
like foundation work, cement forms,
Sure.
At the time, windows, for weatherization back in the 80s, that was the big thing. So I got a second job doing that. Mm-hmm. But taxidermy was always just kind of an interest for me.
Yeah.
And so I bought a book and to work on a bobcat that I was able to harvest that year.
Okay.
I made a few phone calls to taxidermists and found out how much they charged, and it's like, I can't afford that. These guys are robbers,
If you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what's happened. Yeah, it started out as a hobby.
Yeah.
And so I did a bobcat rug, and I thought it was beautiful. And of course, looking back at it now, it was pretty lame, pretty bad. The lips were wax, black wax, and yeah, I got it out of the book, and there were a couple other things in the book that I thought it was interesting,
Sure.
And I was learning a lot, soaking it up.
Yeah.
But then, as years went by, I started to get into competitions. I joined the Oregon Association of Taxidermists and really got involved there. And that's the place to learn if you want to be a taxidermist, is to join an association.
Okay.
Because the judge is critiquing your work.
Yeah.
You're not getting slapped on the back by your friends. You're not being told that's great
Your
when it's
mom,
really not, by your mom. Yeah. But you just get critiqued, and it gets real. And these judges are like national and world renowned judges as far as, their own work as taxidermists.
Wow.
So anyway, that was a great way to learn.
And that's the Oregon Association of Taxidermists that you joined?
Yeah, every state, I believe, has got some kind of association for taxidermists. Okay. Yeah, they're all over the place. So that's where I started, and just continued to hone my skills from there. My first competition, I didn't win a ribbon. And by the time I quit a few years later, I was a master taxidermist in I did a bugling elk.
Wow.
And so I got like the top prize for that at the time.
Man. In just a few years.
Well, if you look at the ribbons on the wall behind you,
I see a number of them.
You see the far left, that's a blank spot.
That's the one I didn't win. There.
So that's the one I didn't win, but
okay.
So I guess the moral of the story is, don't listen to your mama. No, actually, for you young folks, do listen to your mama.
Yeah.
But when it comes to taxidermy, get somebody that really will critique you, and that was my wife. Is the best critique. When I first started the business, she would come in and she'd start pointing out stuff wrong with like a deer mount. And like,
those wives they'll keep us honest.
Yeah. And she did. And I got to the point where, her name's Bunny. I go, Bunny, if you want to come in here and visit, that's fine. But if you're going to critique, I'm going to buy you a hat. So I bought her a hat, and it said quality control on it.
Oh, nice.
And it was a cute little hat, with the little bobber on top and stuff. And so
put her on payroll.
You know what? I probably should have. Because she was out here a lot and did a great job critiquing and helping me, just get to the next level.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
When did you stop firefighting?
I stopped, 16 years ago. So I put in 28 years.
Wow.
Started out in Milwaukee, then we consolidated into Clackamas County in 1998. So I started in 1979 in Milwaukee. Wow. Then they consolidated a number of years later. And then I retired out of Clackamas County.
And how long have you been in Dayton?
Since 1969.
So you were commuting in that time that you were a firefighter?
Yeah. It was 1 day on, 2 days off. So, you drive in, you spend 24 hours there, spend the night, and you drive back the next morning.
Yeah.
So it's perfect for, a job like this where I would, work my 2 days off in the taxidermy shop.
Yeah.
So, retired and just continued doing this to help supplement the pension and help buy some gas. I don't know how long I'm going to go.
Yeah.
I'm getting pretty old.
You're still going.
I'm getting pretty old and slow. I'm glad that I've got customers that are so understanding.
Yeah.
They look at me as an old guy now, I think. I'm not getting the phone calls like before.
They used to crack the whip, huh?
They used to crack the whip. Now it's like, oh, we're going to break that old man down if we keep doing that. So.
You have mostly repeat customers at this point?
Yeah. I have quite a few repeat customers, and I've got some newer customers, just a few years old. But I'm kind of at the point where I want to slow down a little bit, and so let's not tell too many people about this podcast.
Got it. Okay.
Maybe I should do an alias just for this podcast.
Yeah.
But
we'll call you Dave Hakola.
There you go. That'll fool them.
Yep. Jericho was telling me that you helped out at the high school, some taxidermy stuff somehow.
Well,
kind of.
So I was looking for an internship, and the internship that I was going to do didn't work out. And so Dave said, well, why don't you, or actually Mrs. Kearns actually said, well, what if you go out, you're interested in hunting and fishing. What if you go do an internship out with Dave? And so we got that all worked out. And so I kind of started something. I was the first one. Then you had several more students after me the next couple of years, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've had some great kids come through here.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Amazing. The thing with Jericho, though, I'll just kind of expand on that story a little bit. So he came in and it was his senior year, right?
Yep.
Okay. So he comes in and I'm having him do some really dirty work, pressure washing skulls, and boiling out heads. And probably I have everybody that comes in new here sweep up the back room because it's just like really thickened salt and I need to get rid of the salt. So it's usually kind of breaking the interns in. Yeah.
See who's up to snuff.
Who really wants this?
Yeah.
for no pay.
Yeah.
So, but with Jericho, it was really cool because I knew his Grandpa Bob. And Grandpa Bob was a trapper and a houndsman and more of a houndsman, right?
Yeah.
And he would do bobcat and he would sell me his bobcat and he'd sell me his raccoons. And in turn, I would, mount them up for people or for myself or whatever. But when Jericho came in here, I happened to have a raccoon hide that I'd bought from his grandpa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Who had passed away a few years earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. And so Jericho put together this raccoon rug. He did a really good job, Man. And I got thinking later, this is kind of like Grandpa Bob's graduation present for his grandson.
Man, that's special.
That was his hide for Jericho.
Yeah.
And now, I don't know where it's at now, if it's hanging in the garage or somewhere. Or?
Yeah, it's somewhere. My boys climbing in and out of the chair kind of tore it up a little bit. So
we might need to do some repair work.
Yeah. I think the tail's gone and
oh man,
a few things. So.
Well, cool, really cool story though.
Yeah.
Man, I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Because you showed me that raccoon before.
Right.
And I never put two and two together.
Yep.
That would have been where it came from.
Yep.
Man.
Yeah, great kids have come through here, and Jericho's one of them. Now he's a man.
Now he's got kids.
He's
and
got kids and wife. Yeah,
and his own hounds.
Yeah.
So you used to be kind of a fur buyer then for Jericho's grandpa.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit here and
there.
there.
Every once in a while, buy something.
Buy a good one.
Yeah. I mean, he was quite the salesman. Yeah. It's like, Bob, I really don't need one. Oh, come on. This is prime.
Yeah. I have an Eastern Oregon cat that was hanging in your shop that came from him. That one's still hanging up in my room.
But man, 44 years in on this journey of being a taxidermist. Mm-hmm. Does it wear on you? Is it pretty hard mentally and physically gonna wear you out?
It did when I had 2 jobs.
Oh yeah.
Now it's more of a just a little bit above hobby level for me.
Sure.
When I was working 2 jobs, it's like my wife and I had a discussion, I have to quit one or the other. I kind of hit the wall at one point when I was probably about 10 years from retirement,
Oh, okay. So you still had some time to go.
I still had time to go. Yeah. It's like, okay. So, but she encouraged me to just keep working. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, it's worked out well. So since I retired, it's just so much more fun.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's just more of and some of the guys that I used to work with, now they're my customers.
Yeah.
And so I get to have them come in and visit, and I get to hear some of the stuff going on back at work, and so it's been fun that way too.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Keeping that connection.
Is the joy of taxidermy the fact that you get to hear people's stories and deal with the customers, or is it the artistry behind it and the sculpting? Like, what for you is the reason why you're still doing it?
I think trying to create what God has created, try to recreate what God has already done.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll never get there. But it's really cool when you start to see some life kind of get put back into an object like this. It'll never exactly be perfect, but I really enjoy that. And I mean, something as simple as just having a form, which is styrofoam, or it's Eurofoam is what it is. And just start to sculpt the eyes in, get the antlers on, set the ears. And I could start to envision what it's going to look like, whether it's going to be a really cool looking mount or maybe just average. But every once in a while, you'll get one where it's just it's going to be an amazing mount. And then when it pops, and then it's like, okay, that does it for me right there. That was enough right there. That was the kicker.
What separates the two? Is it the cape? What about it? Do you know that it's going to be a better one?
I think, the cape has a lot to do with it, and the position of the form. There's some positions where maybe there's an offset shoulder, maybe the head's in a different position. Just the attitude of the position of the form.
So you don't buy the same form and have like 10 of the same form.
No,
it's specific for each customer, right? Like
they
look through a book, kind of get an idea, and then say, well, can I have the head this way or the mouth open, or
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And now the supplier is getting into more kind of wall pedestal type of forms.
Okay.
So it's you've seen a pedestal mount where it's on a base that could sit in the middle of the room.
Yeah.
And you could see kind of the back of the form. It's kind of concaved a little bit, maybe finished off with leather or something like that. Well, now these supply companies have got wall pedestal forms. So you could hang it on the wall. It's kind of turned a little, like the whole shoulder is turned into the wall. So you can see the back of the form, and I finish it off with leather and some braiding and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these supply companies are just really coming out with some really good mannequins.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I remember when we were doing the internship and we got to go out to look at the mannequins and pick some up, and the different stuff they had in there. I mean, they had elephants in there, they had giraffe forms in there, and it's crazy to look at some of the stuff they have, and every head shape, or just the different sizes that they have come up with over the years to get things to look as realistic as possible. And so it's pretty neat.
Just to add to that, I mean, all the credit goes to the sculptors that sculpt these. They'll start out with a deer skull, and they'll clay that up, and then do the neck and shoulders and clay that up, and to make a model, and then they'll take fiberglass and they'll make a mold, and then they'll start reproducing those.
Wow.
Compared to the olden days when this type of form wasn't even in existence, taxidermists used to use the actual skull with the antlers attached still, put a 2x4 up into the brain area, or maybe up into the neck area, wrap it with Excelsior and string, and then put clay on it, and it probably weighed 50 pounds.
Yeah, more than it did live.
Yeah, probably.
Wow.
Yeah. So these guys that have taken it to the next level, these sculptors, these taxidermists that have done that for the rest of us.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the ones that are artists right there. Right. We just have our little part of doing the artist part, just setting the eyes and kind of getting expressions and things like that.
Well, wouldn't also you have to build up some of the more of the face than just the eyes, right? Don't you have to use clay for the Jericho's motioning, the lips, and even the nose and whatnot?
Oh yeah, definitely the nose and around the lips. And if let's say there's a mule deer prominently that are a Roman nose, you'll build that up maybe with some clay or maybe put some foam there and 2-part foam and shape it the way it needs to be.
Man,
Yeah.
do you go off of reference pictures a lot? Like how do you know? Because normally when someone brings something to you, is it already caped out? Is it just a skull cap and a hide, or are they bringing you a whole head with the cape hanging off of it still?
Well, I get it all. The more experienced hunters that maybe pack in quite a ways, they'll bone out their animals and they'll cape the skin all the way off the skull, and they'll get it in that way, with just the antlers and the cape. Others, the extreme is I've gotten whole bodies of deer in here.
Really?
Yeah, where they've actually driven the deer. Oh yeah. At least they had it gutted.
Yeah, that's helpful.
It's happened. It's only happened twice.
And you said I'm not a butcher.
Yeah. It's only happened twice, but both times I skinned out for the guy and showed him how to cape out a deer. Yeah, which was really a good learning experience for him because it was under controlled conditions. I'd set it on a table and then I'd show him how to do it. Yeah. But getting to one of your questions, I think, was about the heads. When I've skinned them out, if they got a funky, like a Roman nose, I'll actually make a pattern out of cardboard, and I'll make that pattern. And then when I work on the form, I'll use that pattern to fill in with foam. Whoa! So that it gets the exact shape as the original. It's like a stencil reference that you make. Exactly. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Kind of a 3-dimensional stencil. Yeah. So, man, even that, I know I would mess, even the stencil, I would mess that up, that's just, man, years and years of honing your craft.
Well, just even when I did that raccoon head, doing the clay around it and trying to make it look as realistic as you could. I want to go back to what you said, recreating what God had already created and the fact that it's impossible. Yeah, to make it lifelike. But it's awesome that he has instilled that in us to recreate and that's a part of us. And so it is fun to try and make them look as lifelike as you can and get their anatomy and their biology, correct when you're shaping that. And it's fun. And it does just remind you how awesome God is. When I was doing that, I was like, man, God, you knew this little muscle had to be here. You knew that little thing had to be here. Like the eyes have to be pointed a certain direction to. Otherwise, they just look completely wrong. The slightest little, just the smallest little detail. Yeah, I think they look so wrong. We've all seen those bad taxidermy pictures, and
there's plenty of them.
Yeah. See, God never makes mistakes, but taxidermists can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, and reference material too. You asked about reference material. Yeah. So a lot of photographs, and then I've actually made molds of fresh kills, like the nose and eyes. Oh, okay. It's not perfect because it's been dead. It's recently killed. But I'll do the that dental gel that dentists use to mold your teeth. I've used that before on different parts of a deer, the nose or eyes or whatever. Yeah. And then do a plaster cast from that. And that helped me in the beginning.
I have a question about someone maybe who's younger and thinking about what career they might be, and they love to hunt and fish. I mean, obviously you see some value in it because of the internships you've done with young guys. Do you think that it's a good career for people to get into?
Honestly, no. No, not as a career. No. We're looking at numbers that you cited about the number of hunters that have gone down, plummeted to hardly anything from just 20 years ago. Yeah. Or 40 years ago, 1980, I think. Yeah. So those numbers are going down. In Oregon, the economy is so bad, you can't hardly get into a house for like you were able to, 20, 30, 40 years ago, of course. So as a career, I wouldn't suggest it. I wouldn't. But as a side hustle, sure. I would suggest, and for any young person, to find a nice trade that they'd like to do, or go to college, whatever suits them. But there's an organization called Micro Works that's really influential, and they have scholarships for young people.
It's called Micro Works.
Micro Works, yeah.
Okay.
Micro is the guy from Dirty Jobs.
Oh,
okay.
Micro.
Yeah, Micro.
Oh, okay.
Not micro.
I thought you said micro, like small.
Oh, yeah.
Micro Works. No, Micro Works. Got it. Yeah, I know that guy. He's funny.
Yeah, Micro Works. Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, that's what I would suggest. Find a good career that way. And if you like to hunt, and do your own taxidermy, you'd have a good time doing that as a hobby.
Yeah, do it on the side.
On the side, yeah. There's no way I could, even with as successful as I've been here, there's no way I could have done it without my second job.
And that's coming from years and years. And do you even have an idea of how many animals you've worked on?
Oh, not really.
Yeah.
I've got a computer system where I've had the system for maybe 20 years now. Now I could probably go through, but I really don't want to. For some reason, I don't want to look that far back.
No. Yeah. We normally start off the conversation with this question, but we didn't quite get to it this time. But I'd like to ask, to change the subject, what is your favorite hunting or fishing experience?
Oh, I've got a couple of them. Let's do the short one. Okay, this place where we're at right now has been in our family since 1969. Okay. Before this house was here, before our shop was here, this was a hill that we used to sled down when we were kids.
Man.
Lots of great memories here.
Wow.
Was the pond there?
No, that was just a stream, seasonal stream. But
man,
at one point my father dammed it up.
Yeah.
And now there's a pond there. But lots of memories here. And one of the greatest memories was I just got a shotgun, a 20 gauge single shot shotgun for my birthday or for Christmas. And Dad and I were gonna go out duck hunting. And he wasn't a duck hunter. Of course, me as 12 or 13 years old, I wasn't a duck hunter. But I had the shotgun. Yeah. So it's like we hiked up to the top of this hill that we're at right now. And it was all foggy, it was wintertime. And we hear this honk, honk. It's a goose.
Oh, man.
And it's getting closer. It's getting closer. All of a sudden it busts through the fog. And like we're practically eye to eye.
Wow.
And so I pull up my shotgun and I miss. Only one shot. I needed more.
Yeah.
But that was the greatest memory.
Yeah.
I wrote a letter to my dad years later, and just to thank him for being my dad.
Yeah.
And that's one of the stories that I put in there.
Yeah.
Of one of the greatest memories with him.
Man.
So
yeah,
you don't have to be successful.
Right.
But you got to have those memories.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. It was a short story. The other one you wouldn't have had time for.
Well, that's okay.
It's also just really cool that we're sitting here on the property where that took place, and it's very beautiful. Driving in, I was like, man, this is beautiful back here.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that we're back here,
and that's a good thing.
Yeah, we enjoyed it.
So we always like to talk about tips. I just have a few questions for you. We laughed at the guy who brought in, or the couple guys that brought in full deer. But I mean, everyone starts from ground zero and has to learn, especially these days. There's a lot of people getting into hunting and fishing that don't have people who can help teach them, or even the older generation, they don't have anyone in their life that can show them what to do. So I have a couple questions. First of all, what are the most common mistakes people make when they're going to bring something into you? What do you see that you see frequently that you wish people wouldn't do?
Yeah, my biggest thing that I see for deer is people will cut too far up the brisket, and, like when they're gutting out the animal.
Yeah. But
that's an easy fix on my part, because the hair.
Sew that up.
Yeah, the hair is so thick right there. I could sew it up. You'd never know it. The one that's a little bit harder to sew up and take care of is when they do not cut down the instead of cutting down the back of the leg, they'll cut up the inside of the leg, and they'll come across the armpit of the deer.
Okay.
And so that needs to be stitched up, and you'll see the stitches because the hair is so thin right there. So the idea is to go up the back of the leg where the hair, there's a good hair pattern there where it's thicker.
Yeah.
You just follow that up the back of the leg and then back towards the rib cage.
Okay.
You know.
And how much of the leg skin are you hoping people will keep? All the way down to the feet?
Basically just to the knee or the elbow or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Is all you really need. Yeah.
Okay. Suddenly I can't remember I guess on a shoulder mount, you're not really keeping that anyways, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That kind of gets tucked or pulled around behind and stapled to the back of the form.
Okay.
There's plywood back there that you staple to.
Yeah.
But the more there, the better, right?
Oh yeah. You know what? I mean, if just err on too much hide rather than not enough, when people cape out, sometimes they'll maybe cut it too short. A good landmark is like the sternum, of the deer.
Like right at the bottom of the rib cage?
Bottom of the rib cage, yeah. Or maybe even further back and then go around the body, that way. And then, of course, like we were just talking about, down the back of the legs. And then on back to that circular cut that's already around the body.
Okay.
And then cut up the back of the neck towards where the neck and head junction is. And then you could cut the head off after you skin all the hide up towards the head.
So you do go right up the back?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I always thought that you would want to like pull it off like a sock and kind of go around that way. I didn't realize you zipped it up the back.
Yeah, I end up making that cut anyway. I get a number of capes in here that are tube cut.
Yeah.
That's called tubing. And I end up just cutting it down the back of the neck anyway.
It's easier to get it on the form that way, right? And then stretch it tight with the pins and then sew it back up together, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's a lot
when you
easier
send
that
it
way.
in to get tanned.
Yeah.
Or can you even send in a tube?
Yeah,
deer?
but they do charge a lot more.
Okay.
At the tannery, they charge a lot more for the tube. Same way with furs, like a fox or something like that. If it's tubed, they jack it up quite a bit because it's more work for them to flesh and take care of.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it would be because you don't really have that like base to stretch it over and really scrape it and flesh it.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you were to talk to future customers, even though most likely, you're just helping out taxidermists in general, what would you ask of a customer before they bring something in?
To call or text first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just reach out. Yeah.
Yeah. Just reach out.
Don't just show up.
I had a customer in today, and I was here. But if I wasn't here, he would have wasted his trip. So it's good to get a heads up.
Sure.
And if they have any questions about how to take care of a trophy, that's the thing too. Is don't hesitate to reach out. Call or text. Yeah.
And so then, like any kind of hide care that you ask of people. Yeah,
if they could freezing is the best as far as I'm concerned. If you could do it.
Okay.
Without salt.
No salt.
No salt if you're going to freeze it. That kind of defeats the purpose a bit.
Got it.
And another thing to consider too is if you do salt the hide, it's a lot harder to flesh it later because it kind of laminates to the skin. And when I put it on the fleshing beam, or when a taxidermist puts it on the fleshing beam, it's hard to get that meat off because it's dried on there from the salt.
Okay.
And plus, the ears still need to be turned and other things, to prep it for the tannery.
Got it.
And so when you get salting stuff, it just it really makes it a lot tougher.
Okay.
But
that's a great tip because a lot of people just assume salt it, but so don't salt your hides if you're bringing it in.
Well, yeah, if you're bringing it in quickly.
If you can freeze it.
Yeah, freezing is great. If you can't come in right away, you got to do something. So I'd say that's the last resort as far as I'm concerned is salting.
Okay.
But salting's good.
So if you can't freeze it, then go ahead and salt it. But
let's say it's 80 degrees, you're in Eastern Oregon, you just killed a mule deer, you're not going to be able to bring it in for 2 days, but you're also not near a freezer. Do you recommend people take salt with them, or can they put it in a cooler with the meat? What in that situation, what should people do?
Well, in a situation like that, okay, let me ask you this question. Does the hunter know how to cape it completely off the skull? Let's say yes.
Let's say yeah, because we're adding too many hypotheticals if we say no, right?
let's just say yes.
Yeah.
It'll make my answer a lot easier.
Okay, good.
Okay. So in that case, what I would do, if that was me, is I would cape it off the skull, and I would wrap it in plastic, double wrap it, triple wrap it, and put it in the cooler and ice it up. If you have ice, you keep it cool. Treat it like meat. Treat it like hamburger. You know, when hamburger starts to rot, it's because it's not kept cool, right?
Yeah.
And days go by and bacteria starts to work on it. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with the cape. You know, cape is basically meat.
Sure.
You know, and skin.
Yeah.
But it's
got meat on it.
Yeah, and it's going to decompose just like any other meat. And so by keeping it cool and dry, that's the main thing. Now, if you're able to, if all you could do is you can't take it all the way off the skull, I would say salt it, and you know, whatever you can. And another good tip too is a lot of times flies will lay eggs on the inside the eyes and the nose and every crevice that they could get to.
Yeah.
They will lay eggs. And so taking Raid with you, some kind of a bug spray.
Oh.
And spray it down, you know, when you start to see those eggs develop or flies around it.
Yeah.
And also like keep it in a deer bag to help keep the flies off of it too. Yeah.
Those are some great tips there.
Yeah. Or even throw salt, you know, in the eyes and in the nose, you know, that'll dry up the eggs too.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. And it's not just because it's gross for you to deal with and you might even turn a rotten thing away, but it's also because the hair will fall out, right? If it's rotten.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It'll ruin the cape.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So I have a quick question. I know you've done some birds. How would you handle a bird being brought in? What should a customer do if they killed like a really nice pintail or a Eurasian widgeon or something like that they want, you know, to keep and get turned into a piece of taxidermy? What would you have them do with like ducks or pheasants or something like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. With waterfowl, any kind of bird, one trick is to have a pantyhose with you, you know, like nylon stocking.
Okay.
Have that in your pocket or whatever, in your gear. And then when you get that bird, just slide it in. That way it'll keep the feathers from getting all roughed up and stuff. It'll help keep the feathers in alignment. And then throw it in the freezer when you get home. Don't gut it. Don't do anything like that. Just leave as is.
So if you get one that you want to stuff, can you just assume you're not eating that bird? Like you have to choose either or?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never had anybody take their bird back to eat it. Yeah. Because by the time it gets skinned out, you know, you're using, like borax is a typical thing that you use when you're skinning out a bird, because it helps you get a better grip on the skin.
Okay.
As you're pulling the skin back, you throw a little bit of borax in there, kind of dries things out.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody wants to eat a breast.
No.
You know,
no,
with
probably not.
Probably would make you sick.
Borax
that
on
stuff's
it.
pretty tough.
Yeah.
No, that's a great question, Jericho. Because realistically, if and a guy like me at this point in my life, being able to afford to taxidermy anything, it'd probably be a bird. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good tip. The pantyhose, though.
Yeah, and birds aren't cheap. And actually, I've quit doing birds too.
Oh
okay.
yeah.
Just to let
Did you do? There's a few on the wall behind you. Did you do those ones?
Yeah, that was from a hunting trip that my son and I went on together when he was probably 12 or so.
That's cool.
And so that was.
So those are all from the same day.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Oh, we got so many more than that too. Yeah, it was just those were 3 that he got himself.
Oh, that's
awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
When I pulled in, there was a good amount of ducks on the pond. I don't know how many of them are pets and how many of them are mallards or something, but
Well, what's funny is there's a lot of algae on the pond, right? And so the neighbor who owns the pond bought some ducks to help eat the algae. Well, that has drawn in some wild ducks.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it started out with, I think, maybe 4 domestic ducks.
Yeah.
And now there's like a bunch of others flying in now.
Working as live decoys there.
Live decoys, yeah.
Too bad
They're
can't
not
use
hunting
anymore.
that pond.
Yeah, I was about to say, too
yeah.
bad that's not a thing anymore. The call ducks used to be
the real ducks.
Oh,
Yeah.
remember the Robo Ducks? I don't know. Robo Duck is
I never
decoy.
touched any kind of thing like that.
Yeah. No, when I was a kid, well, I shouldn't even say a kid. I was old enough to know better. My brother and I got permission to hunt that pond.
Oh yeah.
And there's houses along the pond, right?
Yeah.
And so we get all set up, and there were ducks coming in, and we get our blind all set up, and we just lit the place up.
Oh,
we woke
man.
up the neighbors. It's like hunting like in a neighborhood, you know.
Yeah.
And the sound just echoed all the way down the ravine. Woke up all the neighbors.
When you fired the first shot, did it cause you to pause?
It did.
Yeah.
Until the second shot and third shot.
Yeah.
Until the ducks kept coming in.
I
and you're
paused
like,
so long I just about missed the second duck. Yeah.
Good morning, neighbors. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
this is my dad's pond, and my stepmother and him, they weren't too happy about it after that, but they gave us permission, but
Yeah.
I don't think they realized just how intense it was going to get.
Well, you don't use bows.
No. But yeah, so we've left that pond alone, you know, and we fished it and stuff like
It's a little what's the word? Sanctuary for the ducks to get off the river and
That's
stop
exactly
getting
right.
shot at. Yeah. Well, you gave some really great hot tips for taxidermy that, that's great to know. My last question on tips before we wrap up the show with the real talk is, do you ever want customers to attempt to flesh their own stuff? Does that save people any amount of time or money, or is that not helpful?
No, there's no need to. It's not going to save them any time or money. It might save me a little bit of time or whatever, but
Sure.
I've got a fleshing beam, and it doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
For me to do a deer cape. Just matter of minutes, really.
Man, when I tried one time, it took me hours and hours to do that thing.
Yeah.
And it was a mess.
I fleshed a bear I brought to you over our canoe. I used the end of canoe.
The canoe? Hey, that's
'cause
resourceful.
It was round and
Yeah.
and so
Yeah, that's pretty smart.
that's what I did one time. So
Yeah, that's resourceful.
Yeah. Yeah, if this fleshing beam gives up on me, I'll have to get a canoe back there.
Yeah, there you go.
And then it'll be double use. You can take it to the pond to wash it off.
Multi-purpose tool.
Yeah. No, cool. And then if someone is fleshing something, or even if they're just skinning it and they accidentally, classic, you cut too far into the hide, is there anything to do there? Anything that person needs to do in that moment? Or is it just kind of like there's a hole in your mount now?
Oh, just come to the realization that there's a hole there.
Yeah.
And just, if you're going to do any more flushing, just, kind of learn from what you did. And not try to do it again.
So they don't sell deer patches?
Well, no, actually, that's where the sewing needle comes
okay.
together,
Yeah.
So that could be sewn up. So it's not the end of the world.
Sure. With your artistry and skills, right?
As a seamstress?
Yeah.
Or a seamster? I don't know.
Seamster? Yeah. Would a seamstress denote a woman? I think so, right?
Oh, nowadays you just don't know.
Yeah. You got to be careful.
Yeah.
Yep.
Watch those pronouns.
I mean, do you want to be a seamstress or a seamster?
I'd rather be a seamster.
Okay. Well, what a great transition into the real talk. So this show, we only talk about Oregon hunting and fishing, but the main question that we want to ask all of our guests is, what is your spiritual connection to the outdoors lifestyle?
Oh, I think on the a good example was just this latest trip that Jericho and I were both involved in. And we were on the road, Rich and I, my hunting partner, and it was going to be too late to drive into camp. It was going to be after dark. And so we made the decision to pull over, and we found this great little campground. Yeah. And so we pulled in and we paid the fee and got a little fire started, in the little rocked out area. And I made the decision to sleep outside. And so I laid out the air mattress and sleeping bag and crawled in, and I watched the show, man. It's like the galaxies. Yeah. In Eastern Oregon, there's no light, any kind of light interference. Wow. It's all crystal clear stuff that you don't see here where we're at. Yeah. And so I watched the show. Man. And I'd wake up every once in a while and I'd see a different part of the show. Yeah. And so to me that just showed just how big this universe is and how God is so amazing. Yeah. You cannot fathom the creator of all this, and it just goes on forever. Yeah. So whenever I'm outdoors, especially Eastern Oregon, I make a point to visit that show. Yeah. And just kind of view it for a little bit. Yeah.
I love that. That's great. As one thing Jericho and I talk about a lot too is that as big and beautiful and cool as that is, the creator who made it is even bigger. Exactly. It's just amazing to participate in that.
Well, to think that he spoke and that came to be, like just with his words and it appeared. Yeah. And, they are still trying to count the stars. Yeah. And now with technology, they're going deeper and deeper and deeper into space, and they can't.
They're saying that the universe is always expanding and that there's more and more stars. Yeah. Well, maybe it's a little glimpse into the infinite nature of our God and how he's immeasurable. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. For sure. So, Dave, when did you come to know Jesus?
I first was introduced to Jesus when I was a little boy. There's a time when my family would go to church. They weren't really, we weren't a church family. But my dad was a barber in Beaverton, where we were living. And he was befriended by a coworker who was a barber, who happened to be a pastor also. Oh. So he had a guy who was in a barber chair next to him. Dad actually owned the barber shop. So this other barber was renting the chair from him. And that other barber happened to be a pastor. So apparently he had to work 2 jobs to be able to do what he's doing.
Just like Paul.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. The tent maker, right? Uh-huh. And so anyway, Dad became friends with him. And got us into church a little bit, and just enough to be introduced to Jesus. And I remember raising my hand at one point saying, yes, I believe in Jesus. I accept him into my heart. But you fast forward, that was pretty much it. Our family was like in and then out. And then 40 years later, wow. I have a family now. By the time I'm 40, basically, so 30 years later. And my wife just lost her father, and she was really hurting. And it's like, she wanted to start going to church. So I said, well, fine, have fun, take the kids with you. Yeah. And I'd be out here working in the shop. And so, but every time they would come back, and my little kids were just, I think they were like maybe 8 and 6, 8 and 5. And their squeaky little voices would ask, Daddy, how come you don't come with us? Oh, yeah. And so that got me going for them. Wow. But at that point, the pastor was talking directly to me. You know, it's like everything that he was preaching about, talking about life, you know, faith, you know, was like he knew exactly what was going on in my own heart.
Yeah.
Anyway, we just continued to go to church, and then my wife wanted me to start going to Sunday school, which was an hour earlier. An hour less of sleep and everything else, an hour more out of my life, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm going to get in the story, and it's a supernatural story, okay? And so anyway, we start Sunday school, and Jericho's dad, John, is actually teaching the class, and we're new to this church.
Yeah.
And so he's teaching about Revelation. And just to back up a little bit, when I was living in Beaverton as a little kid, we had a lady, Mrs. Mead was her name, and she had a Bible club, and she invited all the kids in the neighborhood to be in her Bible club. And there was a lot of us at that time, you know, in the 1960s.
Yeah.
And this place is just jam-packed. I mean, we were like the little rascals. You know. So anyway, she had her club going, and one of the things that she was teaching us was about Revelation. And it would scare me, and I would have like nightmares and things like that.
Yeah.
And so fast forward now I'm 40 years old about, and walking in on John's Sunday school class, and he's talking about Revelation. Yeah. And so anyway, it's like, oh, wow, talking about PTSD. Yeah. You know, talking about, you know, kind of a trigger point. And at one point he was talking about how John, you know, the Apostle John, would see in his vision these strange creatures, you know, 3 heads, 6 wings, eyes and stuff on the body of this flying creature. And I remember my wife and I came home, and we would go in the bedroom, shut the door so the kids wouldn't hear us arguing. Yeah. And I would argue against what I just heard. Like, what's the deal? You know, John, the Apostle John, must have been eating pizza the night before. He just had a bad dream. He was like, no way, it's just too weird. It wasn't a few nights later, I'm in bed, and I hear this, and it's a knock on our window. And this is like, it's like 2:00 in the morning. Wow. 2:46 in the morning, because I looked at the clock. And I hear it, and I know that it's, we're out in the country. Yeah. In our bedroom window, I mean, there's nothing around us, but something's knocking at the window. It was a distinct knock. Woke me up out of sound sleep. Yeah. And I go, Bunny, do you hear that? Nope, didn't hear it. I described what it was. Nope, didn't hear anything. And it's like, but the hair on the back of my neck, it's like, I didn't want to look out that window. I just kind of got in the fetal position, right? And just kind of hunkered down. Yeah. And so the next night I hear at the same time, 2:46 in the morning. Wow. This time it's at the front door. Oh. It's coming from the front of the house. And I go, Bunny, did you hear that? She goes, no. And I described, no, I didn't hear it. Well, that morning I had to get up and go to work. And so I'm in the pickup truck. I'm heading for Clackamas. And I decided to turn the radio station to K-Love. You know, I just started kind of listening to it. It was a Christian radio station. Yeah. And back then they had like the verse of the day. And the guy in the MC or anyway, whatever his job is, the radio host. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Anyway, he lets out says this Bible verse, and it's, here I am, I stand at your door and knock. If anybody hears the door and opens it, I will come in and eat with he and he with me. Yeah. And it's like, and that hit me. It's like, oh my gosh, that just reminds me of what just been happening to me. Yeah. And all of a sudden he said it was Revelation 3:20. Wow. Revelation. Yeah. And it's like God at that moment said, how real was that to you, Dave? Yeah. You know, you get on my son, John, the apostle. How real was that to you there, young man? Wow. And that just woke me up. Man. And I at the time I didn't believe in baptism. I thought it was just a show, but I just felt convicted.
Yeah.
And I ran the next Sunday. I ran to the pastor and I said, I need to be baptized.
Wow.
And at that moment,
Man.
you know, I was baptized, you know, like the next Sunday.
Yeah.
And at that time, it's like, so I was introduced at a young age, and I gave my life to the Lord.
Yeah.
But I really didn't start living for Him until after that experience.
Man.
And I've just been on fire ever since.
I love it.
Yeah. So
That's awesome. Praise God for that testimony. Man, thank you.
Yeah. I've told Jericho's heard it a few times now. He's probably bored with it by now.
That's amazing. I love that. And the fact that you're still living in that that relationship with Jesus, and how even when we were on the phone planning this, and you said how you use this taxidermy studio as a way to help people connect the dots between their experiences in the outdoors and with the animals and in nature, with, you know, bringing it back to giving glory to God. And, you know, that's near and dear to my heart. So I loved hearing that that's what you do as well through the taxidermy, and let alone how every single part of your life changes when you surrender to God. It truly impacts every single part of your life.
It really does. It really does. And just in this room here, it's just, I've had so many cool conversations, and they're natural. They're natural conversations. And just somebody brings something up, and it's like, and we get talking about faith. Yeah. And we get talking about life. And just one-on-one with somebody. Yeah. And it's just been just a really neat place. We've had Bible studies in here with The Great Hunt for God with Jim Ramos, his group. We used to meet here at like, dark 30. I mean, before everybody had to go to work and stuff.
Sweet.
So
that's cool.
It's been fun. It's been just an amazing journey.
I love it, man. Well, thank you for sharing that. I hope that anyone who's listening to this, maybe God's knocking at your heart, knocking at the door, and maybe there's lots of coincidences in your life that you could call coincidences. But if you really start to think about it, God's orchestrating a plan for you to come into right relationship with Him. And that's simply just to know Him, to accept the gospel of Jesus Christ, and to be saved. And so
the Bible says that God calls everyone to Himself. And so if you feel God calling you, if you feel God knocking at that door, don't ignore it. Like we always say, look at creation. He created that for you. There's design there. Yeah. Think about the creator of those things, and He wants to have a relationship with you.
Yeah. And I would just like to add that God loves you. There's so much in this world now that just beats us down, but you could always count on God. You might have your back turned to Him, but He's never turned His back on you. Yeah. And all you have to do is turn around, and He's right there. Just ask Him for that relationship, and He'll fulfill it for you.
Amen. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Dave, for sharing your heart and talking to us about taxidermy and the outdoors and about Jesus. I'm really thankful for this time we had together, and I really believe that someone's going to listen to this who needs to hear that message, and it's going to really impact them. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Dave. That'd be awesome.
All right. Well, I'm Bryant.
I'm Jericho.
I'm Dave.
And we're signing off. Thank you for listening.
See you next time.
All right. then we continue. Don't worry, I edit out all the weird stuff. So
Yeah,
like, this won't be
you could
any-
talk and
But I might add it on to the end. Sometimes it's funny to add the weird stuff to the end of it, you know?